Hello there, Commonwealth from here. E3 2022 was a bust, but the Game Awards 2022 is on for December 8th. So what can we expect? Well, that Zelda is once again nominated for Most Anticipated Game. And with Elden Ring out and likely collecting all other rewards from, or with God of War Ragnarok, it is more likely than ever that Zelda could win the award for the upcoming game. For one, since it now has its official title, Tears of the Kingdom, instead of the sequel to Breath of the Wild. As well as a solid release date 5 months after the Game Awards, May 12, 2023. Oh, and that might also bring us new trailer and or gameplay. As such, be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell, and since I'm a fan of good news before the bad news, let's divide this video, all to keep it balanced and to the point. Then why could Zelda Tears of the Kingdom be at the Game Awards 2022 on December 8th? The biggest argument is general promotion. Nintendo has thus far in the marketing of this Breath of the Wild sequel, and beginning from September, Tears of the Kingdom depended exclusively on the Nintendo Directs and one YouTube upload. And the most recent trailer has not gained the same views as the 2 prior ones, so no doubt we need to see more to step the hype of this game up another notch, while the calendar still says 2022. Our wishes aside, there's a big financial argument as well in play here, namely the gaming audience that watches the Game Awards live every December. 85 million to be precise in 2021, the highest number ever and far beyond any of Nintendo's own directs or even trailer uploads, including the ones where the 20th Zelda game will show up again in 2023. To put the 85 million, which are likely to be surpassed this year, with Elden Ring and God of War fighting for the GOTY title, let's go back to the last year where Zelda was present at the Game Awards, namely in 2017. Back then, when Champions Ballot was released, 11.5 million watched the show and the Zelda team's great triumph. That is 7 times less than last year's show or viewership that Nintendo will never reach in their marketing of the game, with exception of perhaps the Super Bowl. But there again, you can have at most a 30-second ad, and it will not be as focused on gamers and entertainment crowds as the Game Awards, where you can have a stage presence for up to 10 minutes. Needless to say, Jeff Keighley has since Breath of the Wild's Game of the Year win in 2017 built an empire, and his love for Zelda is definitely a contributing factor to bring the sequel to the show where it will want to win more rewards next year. And this brings us to argument number 2, namely positioning for next year's awards. Winning the Game of the Year award in 2017 was no doubt one of the greatest moments for series producer Eiji Aonuma and director Hidemaru Fujibayashi. But the certainty of Zelda winning might partially be credited to the brilliant build-up that Nintendo did at the Game Awards from 2014 to the moment the final statue was handed to producer Aonuma, who then handed it to director Fujibayashi. Besides skipping 2015, Breath of the Wild showed up every year from its reveal to the final DLC release, 2014, 2016 and 2017, a consistency that is unrivaled at the Game Awards to this day. Now, I'm not saying that Nintendo needs to bring Zelda Tears of the Kingdom to the show this year to win the most anticipated Game Award this year and Game of the Year at the Game Awards 2023, but it will certainly help to a certain degree. We should not underestimate the importance of the Game Awards, and so should Nintendo, as there's just so much to gain from showing up with a new trailer or the first gameplay for a game that will be out over half a year before the Game Awards 2023. Speaking of half a year, that is well under the time that is left until the release when the Game Awards 2022 begins on December 8 in Los Angeles. In fact, a little over 5 months remaining to the moment we can press start on our Switches, and it goes without saying that this is not much time at all, and definitely not for the most important sequel of all time. The way Breath of the Wild changed Zelda is unrivaled, and a lot is at play, so leaving it to internal marketing would be shooting yourself in the foot. This is the one opportunity and actual physical stage that this game will get at the most watched event in live entertainment when not counting sports events. Missing out will be a big mistake, one that Nintendo is more than aware of. All excuses are gone now that the borders to Japan are open again, and I'm staying there from November 16 to December 6th. Hence, there's nothing to hide behind anymore, especially when the first physical appearance of Tears of the Kingdom, well, with a statue, was at Nintendo Live at Tokyo Big Sight this October. And Nintendo returned with physical booths at PAX West 2022. But the worst shame is that thus far Zelda Tears of the Kingdom only had a physical presence in Japan. Why is this a problem? As you want to market to your biggest audience, which simply isn't in the land of the rising sun. No, in the case of open-air Zelda, that is no doubt the western markets of North America, Europe and Australia/New Zealand. This is where Breath of the Wild has been breaking records, as Zelda simply isn't as popular as certain other Nintendo franchises in Japan. And though the Game Awards take place at inhumane hours here in Europe, it is almost prime time in the US and Canada. Not only that, these are also markets where, as of recently, the Switch is struggling to keep pace with the PS5 and Xbox Series when it comes to new monthly sales compared to Japan. In other words, Nintendo needs a boost in Western markets in 2023, and there's no better place than the Game Awards to reveal the first actual gameplay of Tears of the Kingdom. So Conrad, why don't you just say that the game will show up at the event we have all been waiting for since the reveal in 2019? Well, that is what the rest of this video is for, and just like with the points in favor, there are more than one that goes against. The by far biggest is Nintendo's introversion beginning from 2018. The moment Shuntaro Furukawa took over after Tatsumi Kimishima stepped down as president of Nintendo, and following this change, Nintendo shut down their presence outside of their own channels. The only exception from this rule, as previously mentioned, was Super Smash Bros. Ultimate's third-party DLC characters, but only at the Game Awards and nothing else in the West. Furthermore, the departure of Reggie Fils-Aimé as president of Nintendo of America in spring 2019 definitely didn't help, as he is the one who shared the closest friendship with the owner of the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley. Combined, they were instrumental in bringing Zelda to the show in 2014, 2016 and 2017. Reggie was the marketing genius at Nintendo of America, and after his departure before the reveal of what is now Tears of the Kingdom, things haven't been the same, as nearly all focus on upcoming titles since then have been placed within Nintendo's Directs and Nintendo's own Twitter posts/YouTube uploads. Very little has been delivered to outside players for general shows. Well, outside of commercials, that is. It is clear that Jeff Keighley is most aware of this, as he went from having a big first-party Nintendo presence each year until the end of 2017 to nothing when it comes to Nintendo's in-house developed IPs at the Game Awards. This right here cannot be excluded in any Zelda Tears of the Kingdom at the Game Awards 2022 conversation or video, as this is a massive obstacle which is a typical representation of Japanese corporate conservatism, and some will even say arrogance due to current global success. Which brings us to reason number 2 against the game showing up at the Game Awards 2022. Namely, that we on December 8 are still over 5 months away from the release of the game on May 12th. What Nintendo has demonstrated throughout 2022 is an ability to market upcoming releases to the max in the final 3 months leading to the release of their titles. And if it works, why return to a stretched out marketing cycle, when you can A. start 2023 by bringing back Zelda in your own first Nintendo Direct of the year, and B. follow it up in say April, so right after Easter, or 1 month prior to release with a big dedicated Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Direct. Just like we saw this year with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Splatoon 3. Nintendo's attitude might be very simple. We have our own presentations, and that is exactly reason number 3 against the game being at the Game Awards. Namely that in Nintendo's eye, they don't really need the Game Awards to the same degree as they did back in 2014, 2016 and 2017, when the Wii U had failed and the desperation was at an all-time high. Now in 2022, this definitely isn't the case, and leaving it to someone else to promote your game also takes away something else that Nintendo loves almost as much as profits, namely control. They want to control the narrative by having their own pre-recorded and fully scripted appearances in presentations that they are the host, not guest of. In recent years, Nintendo has gotten rid of one show after another that had any real-life hosts in it. We saw this with Nintendo Minute, but also in Japan, as their own live-action shows were canned. And what we are left with is a more and more cold and corporate facade without a face outside of Koizumi-san and Takahashi-san in Nintendo Directs. It goes without saying, a physical presence at the Game Awards goes 100% against this grain, which Nintendo is now more than comfortable with, controlling the narrative from their corporate headquarters in Kyoto. But there's one final reason that might completely overshadow the others, namely new hardware, or at the very least new top model Nintendo Switch, a reveal that cannot take place before the holiday to not harm the sales of the current Nintendo Switch family of systems. And of course this time frame ends long after December 8. If Zelda is a big part of marketing a new, more powerful model and likely also releasing day and date with it on, say, May 12th, then we can almost forget seeing Zelda at the 2022 Game Awards. Why? As Nintendo will want to market their big 2023 game running on said hardware first in 2023. And those are the reasons that are worth bringing up for and against Tears of the Kingdom showing up with a trailer and possible gameplay at the Game Awards. But naturally, there are more reasons, so share them down below and let's discuss them together in the comments. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell to not miss any of our Zelda and Nintendo videos leading up to and far beyond the Game Awards 2022. Last but not least, a big thanks goes to all of you for watching and to our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons, and in particular, role producer Charles Shash. You rock, and please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.